This is the story of how one country is quietly deciding the outcome of the largest war in Europe since 1945 without firing a single shot. The war between Russia and Ukraine has become a drone war. Both sides depend on unmanned aircraft to strike targets, conduct reconnaissance, and destroy enemy positions. But here is what most people do not realize. Both Russia and Ukraine get their drone components from the same place: China. China isn't playing fair. A Financial Times investigation published in late 2025 exposed something remarkable. A Chinese businessman had taken an ownership stake in Russia's leading drone manufacturer. Within 24 hours of journalists accessing those records, the data was deleted from Russian corporate registries. This is the hidden war, the one fought not in trenches or skies, but in factories and boardrooms thousands of miles from the front line. Let's start with the basic reality that most Western analysts have been slow to acknowledge. China produces somewhere between 70 and 80% of the world's commercial drones. That dominance extends to the components that go into military and military-adapted drones, such as cameras, motors, control boards, batteries, and the specialized electronics that determine whether a drone can fly far enough and hit its target accurately. Ukraine's dependency on Chinese components is staggering. According to the Snake Island Institute, 97% of Ukrainian drone producers identify China as their primary source for imports. Other estimates put the figure around 85%. Either way, the conclusion is the same. Ukraine cannot wage this drone war without Chinese parts. Russia faces the same dependency. Cut off from Western technology by sanctions, Russian drone manufacturers turn to China for everything from microchips to machine tools. So both armies fighting each other in Ukraine are flying drones built from the same Chinese components. You might think this would create a level playing field. It hasn't. In November 2025, the Financial Times published an investigation that pulled back the curtain on what is really happening. Journalists discovered that a Chinese supplier named Wang Dinghua had acquired a 5% ownership stake in Rostock, Russia's leading FP5 drone manufacturer. This was the first documented case of a Chinese citizen taking an equity position in a sanctioned Russian defense company. The numbers involved are significant. A company called Minghuaxin, connected to this same network, had supplied $411 million worth of components to Rostock and related companies since mid-2023. But what happened next tells you everything about how sensitive this relationship is. Within one day, just 24 hours after Financial Times journalists accessed the Russian corporate registry records showing this ownership stake, all shareholder data for Rostock was deleted, scrubbed clean. Someone was watching. Someone did not want this connection documented. The investigation revealed that Russia is not just buying components from China. Russia is importing entire manufacturing lines, including metal cutting machines, plastic injection systems, and the equipment needed to mass-produce drones inside Russia. China is helping Russia build its own drone industry from the ground up. If you want a single statistic that captures the imbalance, here it is. In August 2025, China shipped 328,000 miles of fiber-optic cable to Russia. This is the specialized cable used in advanced fiber-optic drones that are harder to jam and more accurate than traditional radio-controlled models. In that same period, China shipped 72 miles of the same cable to Ukraine. Let me put that in perspective. That is a ratio of 4,556 to 1. For every mile of fiber-optic drone cable Ukraine received, Russia received more than 4,500 miles. This is not an accident. This is not market forces. This is a choice. Fiber-optic drones represent the cutting edge of this technology. They are resistant to electronic warfare. They can operate in contested electromagnetic environments where traditional drones fail. Russia is getting this technology at industrial scale. Ukraine is getting almost none. In January 2026, at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Ukraine's intelligence chief Kyrylo Budanov, who by then had become head of the president's office, delivered a stark assessment. He said that now we see the actual absorption of the Russian Federation by China. Budanov explained what Western analysts had been slow to grasp. Beijing has officially declared neutrality. China has banned weapons exports to Russia. Not a single complete weapon system has been transferred, but that formal neutrality masks a deeper reality. As Budanov put it, Beijing has not transferred a single unit of ready-made weapons. but they are skillfully exploiting Russia's weakness. China found a loophole. Drone components are not classified as weapons. Machine tools are not weapons. Electronics and batteries and cameras are not weapons. By controlling the supply of these dual-use items, China shapes the battlefield without ever crossing the line into direct arms sales. And here is the strategic calculation that makes this so clever. The longer the war continues, the more dependent Russia becomes on China. Western sanctions have cut Russia off from alternative suppliers. Every month the war drags on, Russia sinks deeper into China's orbit. Budanov's assessment is blunt. Russia is being absorbed, not conquered militarily, but absorbed economically and technologically. China is becoming the indispensable partner that Russia cannot survive without. This brings us to the uncomfortable strategic reality. China profits from this war continuing. Not because Beijing wants Russia to win. A triumphant expansionist Russia on China's border would create its own problems. And not because China wants Russia to lose. A collapsed Russia might produce instability that spills across the border. China's optimal outcome is a war that continues long enough to drain Russia of resources, independence, and alternatives. A Russia that emerges from this conflict will be weaker, more isolated, and more dependent on Chinese goodwill than at any point in modern history. The drone supply chain is the mechanism. Ukraine needs Chinese components to defend itself. Russia needs Chinese components to attack. China sells to both, but tips the scales toward Russia through volume, through pricing, through access to the newest technology. Ukrainian drone manufacturers have reported arriving at Chinese suppliers only to find that the components they need have already been purchased. Russia pays more and buys in larger quantities. When new technological solutions emerge, like fiber-optic control systems, they appear on the Russian side of the front line first. The sanctions regime that was supposed to isolate Russia has in practice funneled Russia toward a single dominant supplier, and that supplier is using the leverage. We began with a simple premise. The drone war isn't being won or lost in Ukraine. It is being decided in Chinese factories. The evidence supports that conclusion. Both sides depend on China for the vast majority of their drone components, but the supplies are not equal. Russia receives fiber-optic cable at a ratio of over 4,500 to 1. Chinese investors have taken ownership stakes in Russian drone manufacturers. Entire production lines have been shipped from China to Russia. None of this violates China's official neutrality. No complete weapons have been transferred. Beijing can point to its export bans and claim clean hands. But the battlefield impact is real. Ukraine's drone capabilities are constrained by what China chooses to sell. Russia's drone capabilities are enhanced by Chinese investment and technology transfer. Budanov called it absorption. The Financial Times documented the mechanism. The numbers tell the story. China has found a way to shape the outcome of Europe's largest war without deploying a single soldier or firing a single shot. The war is fought in Ukraine. The war is won or lost in Shenzhen, in Guangzhou, in the industrial zones where drone components roll off assembly lines and get loaded onto ships. One set of ships heads to Russia. Another, much smaller set heads to Ukraine. And in that disparity, the future of this war is being written.